I mentioned them briefly. I explored the Olmec mystery. It's considered to be the earliest high culture of Central America.
New DNA analysis of ancient Aztec populations is revealing a pattern that doesn't match what history suggests. Entire male bloodlines appear to vanish, replaced within a short span, while maternal lines continue. What emerges is not gradual change, but a deeper restructuring of populations across generations. The DNA discovery that shouldn't exist. Recent genetic studies focusing on ancient populations in Mesoamerica have revealed a pattern that does not align with standard models of gradual human development. Analysis conducted around 2021 using recovered samples from multiple archaeological sites showed that male genetic lines, specifically Y chromosomes, were not simply reduced over time, but disappeared entirely from certain populations. These findings came from comparisons across different time layers, where earlier male lineages were present and then abruptly absent in later generations. Now this is where it becomes important. In most population transitions, genetic change happens gradually, with overlap between older and newer lineages. That distinction is important. What appeared in this data was not a transition, but a break, where continuity stopped completely within a short period. The absence was not partial, it was total, with no detectable trace of earlier male ancestry in later populations. Researchers comparing datasets from sites linked to Teotihuacan and surrounding regions identified that this shift occurred within a narrow time frame rather than across centuries. The pattern suggested a rapid event or series of events that removed entire male lines while leaving other genetic markers intact. This kind of separation is not typical in natural population change and requires a specific set of conditions to occur. This matters because it challenges how population history in the region has been understood. The data does not reflect slow adaptation or migration alone. It points toward a structural reset in which one part of the population was removed and replaced. The civilizations that lost their fathers. Further analysis across multiple cultures showed that this pattern was not limited to a single site. Populations associated with the Olmec, Maya, Toltec, and regions connected to Teotihuacan displayed similar genetic shifts over time. In each case, maternal DNA lines remained largely continuous, while paternal markers showed abrupt replacement. This contrast between male and female genetic continuity created a consistent pattern across different civilizations. Now, this is where it becomes important. Y chromosomes are passed directly from father to son, making them a stable marker for tracking male lineage over generations. That distinction is important. When these markers disappear suddenly, it indicates that male populations did not continue through normal reproduction cycles. In datasets reviewed around 2020, researchers observed that while maternal DNA persisted across generations, paternal lines showed clear breaks with no gradual blending. This suggests that women remained within communities while male populations were replaced. The pattern repeats across different regions and time periods, indicating that it was not an isolated event, but part of a broader process affecting multiple societies. This matters because it changes how population continuity is understood. Instead of stable generational transfer, the data reflects disruption followed by replacement. The structure of these societies, at least genetically, shows evidence of events that altered lineage at a fundamental level, leaving maternal continuity intact while resetting paternal ancestry. The survivors who carried the past. Genetic analysis across ancient populations shows a clear imbalance between maternal and paternal lineages. Studies conducted in Mesoamerica around 2020 found that mitochondrial DNA, passed from mother to child, remained consistent even during periods of collapse. In contrast, Y chromosome data showed repeated breaks, where male ancestry lines disappeared and were replaced. This pattern appeared across multiple sites and time periods, suggesting it was not a single event, but a recurring process. Now this is where it becomes important. Mitochondrial DNA is stable across generations and reflects continuity within populations. That distinction is important. When maternal lines remain intact, while paternal lines vanish, It indicates that women remained within communities while male populations were replaced. This creates a genetic structure where cultural continuity can persist even when lineage changes at a deeper level. In regions associated with the Maya and Toltec, researchers observed that maternal markers carried forward traditions, language, and social structure despite major disruptions. At the same time, paternal DNA showed abrupt shifts, with new lineages appearing within short time frames. This suggests that incoming groups integrated with existing populations, but not evenly across gender lines. This matters because it explains how civilizations could maintain cultural identity while undergoing deep genetic change. Women acted as carriers of continuity, preserving social systems even as male ancestry was replaced. Over centuries, this pattern repeated across different regions, creating a layered history where cultural stability existed alongside genetic disruption. The collapse that looks like a crime scene. Archaeological evidence shows that some population shifts were linked to sudden and violent events. Around 550 AD, the city of Teotihuacan, located near modern-day Mexico City, experienced a rapid collapse after reaching a population of over 125,000. Excavations revealed burned temples, damaged structures, and signs of coordinated destruction rather than gradual decline. Now, this is where it becomes important. When physical destruction aligns with genetic change, it suggests that population shifts were not accidental. That distinction is important. DNA analysis from remains associated with this period shows that male lineages changed within a single generation, with new Y chromosome markers replacing older ones without overlap. Researchers examining this data around 2021 found no evidence of gradual migration or blending. Instead, the transition appears immediate, with one set of paternal lines ending and another beginning in a very short time frame. This kind of shift requires a large-scale event capable of removing existing male populations while allowing parts of the community to remain. This matters because it reframes how collapse is understood. The evidence does not point only to environmental stress or slow decline. It reflects a structured disruption where destruction, replacement, and continuation occurred together. The physical remains show damage, while the genetic record shows replacement, creating a combined picture of a rapid and decisive transformation within the population. The pattern that keeps repeating. Genetic evidence across multiple regions shows that this was not a single isolated event. Studies comparing populations linked to the Maya, Toltec, and areas influenced by Teotihuacan revealed the same structural shift in paternal DNA across different time periods. Data reviewed around 2020 showed that Y chromosome lineages repeatedly disappeared and were replaced without gradual overlap. This pattern appeared in separate locations, indicating a broader process rather than a localized disruption. Now, this is where it becomes important. When the same genetic outcome appears across different civilizations, it suggests a repeated mechanism rather than coincidence. That distinction is important. Each collapse follows a similar sequence, where disruption is followed by the removal of male lineages and the introduction of new ones within a short time frame. In regions connected to the Yucatan Peninsula, archaeological layers show periods of instability followed by population restructuring. Genetic data from these layers aligns with physical evidence of conflict or abandonment. Male ancestry lines end, while maternal lines continue, creating a consistent pattern across centuries. This repetition indicates that the process was not random, but part of a recurring cycle affecting multiple societies. This matters because it changes how historical continuity is understood. Instead of stable development, the data reflects repeated resets within the population. Each cycle leaves behind cultural continuity through surviving groups, while genetic structure is altered at a deeper level. The pattern suggests that these events were widespread and occurred more than once, forming a repeating structure within the region's history. The discovery that broke the timeline. A separate line of genetic research introduced another layer to this pattern. In 2015, DNA analysis conducted on populations in the Amazon revealed genetic markers linked to Australasia, a region geographically distant from the Americas. This finding did not align with the standard migration model, which suggests that early populations entered through a single route via Siberia. Now, this is where it becomes important. Migration models depend on continuity between origin and destination populations. That distinction is important. The presence of Australasian markers suggests that additional groups may have entered the Americas through routes or timeframes not previously accounted for. Further studies comparing genetic sequences showed that these markers appeared in limited populations and were not widespread across the continent. This suggests that these groups either remained isolated or were later absorbed into larger populations. Over time, their genetic presence became less visible, leaving only partial traces in specific regions. This matters because it introduces the possibility that entire populations existed outside the established historical framework. If these groups were later replaced or absorbed, their presence would only remain in fragments of DNA rather than continuous records. The discovery does not only add a new migration path, it suggests that parts of early human history in the Americas may have been lost through the same processes of replacement seen in later civilizations. The Aztecs arrive at the perfect moment. The arrival of the Aztecs into Mesoamerica occurred during a period when multiple earlier civilizations had already experienced disruption. By the time records begin to trace Aztec expansion around 1300 AD, regions once controlled by groups such as the Toltec and remnants of Teotihuacan influence had already undergone structural decline. Archaeological and genetic data suggest that these earlier collapses were not isolated, but part of a repeated pattern affecting population continuity. Now, this is where it becomes important. When a region experiences repeated disruption, its population structure becomes unstable. That distinction is important. Male genetic lineages across several areas had already been reduced or replaced in earlier cycles, leaving fragmented continuity in paternal ancestry. This created conditions where new incoming groups would face less resistance at a genetic level, not just politically or militarily. In areas near Valley of Mexico, early Aztec settlements began to appear within landscapes that had already been reorganized by previous collapses. The population base they encountered was not entirely intact in terms of lineage continuity. Instead, it showed signs of earlier restructuring, where maternal lines remained, but paternal lines had shifted over time. This created a setting where integration and expansion could occur more rapidly. This matters because timing plays a critical role in how expansion unfolds. The Aztecs did not enter a stable system. They entered a region already shaped by cycles of disruption and replacement. Their arrival aligned with a moment where existing structures were weakened, allowing their influence to grow without encountering fully intact competing lineages. The genetic conquest of an empire. As the Aztecs expanded across regions of central Mexico, their influence extended beyond political control into population structure. Genetic studies conducted around 2020 show that in areas brought under Aztec control, paternal DNA markers began to shift within relatively short timeframes. This shift was not gradual, but appeared within 1 or 2 generations, indicating rapid integration combined with lineage replacement. The speed of this change suggests a structured process rather than random mixing, where expansion directly influenced population composition. Now, this is where it becomes important. Population change is not only about movement or settlement. That distinction is important. When paternal lineages spread quickly across regions, it reflects a restructuring of the population at a biological level. This process involves the continuation of maternal lines while introducing new paternal ancestry into the system. Over time, this creates continuity in culture while altering lineage beneath the surface. In regions connected to Tenochtitlan, which became the center of Aztec power by the 1400s, this pattern becomes more visible. Local populations retained cultural elements and continuity through maternal lines, while paternal markers shifted toward those associated with the expanding empire. This created a layered structure where cultural identity remained recognizable, but genetic composition changed beneath it. Trade, alliance systems, and administrative control reinforced this process, ensuring that these changes were maintained across generations. This matters because it shows that expansion operated on multiple levels at once. It was not limited to territory or governance. It included a reorganization of lineage that influenced future generations. In several areas, this restructuring occurred alongside the spread of political authority, creating stability through integration rather than constant conflict. Over time, this process allowed Aztec paternal ancestry to spread across large areas, shaping the genetic landscape in ways that extended beyond immediate political control and continued long after direct influence declined. The system behind the expansion. Expansion across central Mexico followed a pattern that combined warfare, movement, and integration rather than simple occupation. By the early 1400s, Aztec campaigns were not only focused on territory, but on controlling populations within regions connected to Tenochtitlan. Historical and genetic evidence suggests that conflict often removed male resistance while leaving surviving populations in place. This created conditions where control could be established quickly without completely dismantling local societies. Now, this is where it becomes important. When warfare targets specific parts of a population, the outcome is not only political control, but structural change. That distinction is important. The removal of male groups, followed by integration of women into the expanding system, creates a shift that continues across generations. This process allows culture and language to spread while reshaping lineage at the same time. Over time, this approach builds continuity on the surface while altering deeper population structures beneath it. Language played a role in this system. The spread of Nahuatl across regions linked to the empire reflects movement of people, trade, and administration. Trade routes connecting different zones allowed not only goods but populations to move, accelerating the mixing process. In areas such as Valley of Mexico, this created environments where local communities became part of a broader network within a relatively short time. These networks linked distant regions into a shared system that extended influence beyond direct control. This matters because expansion was not limited to force alone. It operated through a combination of conflict, integration, and reproduction. Entire populations were reorganized within decades, with cultural identity continuing while genetic structure shifted. In several regions, administrative control and tribute systems reinforced this process, ensuring that integration remained stable over time. The result was a system that did not rely on constant expansion but maintained influence through population restructuring, allowing changes to persist across generations without repeated intervention. The disturbing truth Hancock was pointing to. Recent DNA analysis across ancient populations shows that these patterns are not limited to a single civilization. Studies conducted around 2021 across Mesoamerica reveal repeated cycles where male genetic lineages disappear and are replaced, while maternal lines remain consistent. This pattern appears across different regions and time periods, indicating a recurring process rather than isolated events. Now, this is where it becomes important. Historical records often describe the rise and fall of civilizations as gradual or environmental processes. That distinction is important. The genetic evidence suggests that in some cases, collapse involved direct replacement at the population level, not just decline or migration. In regions associated with the Maya and earlier cultures, similar patterns of lineage disruption appear in the data. Male ancestry lines end abruptly, while female continuity carries forward cultural elements into new population structures. This creates a layered history where identity appears continuous, but genetic foundations have shifted underneath. This matters because it changes how long-term human history is understood. Instead of a steady progression, the evidence points to repeated restructuring events where populations were altered at a fundamental level. The pattern suggests that these cycles may have occurred more frequently than currently documented, leaving only partial traces in the genetic record that are now being uncovered through modern analysis. Additional comparisons across datasets from Central America and regions studied in 2020 show that these genetic shifts often align with periods of instability recorded in archaeological layers. Burned structures, abandoned settlements, and sudden cultural transitions appear alongside changes in paternal DNA. This overlap strengthens the link between physical evidence and genetic data, showing that these were not separate processes, but connected events. Over time, This pattern forms a consistent structure where disruption, replacement, and continuity occur together, leaving behind a record that is only now becoming visible through combined scientific methods. The genetic evidence is beginning to reshape how these civilizations are understood. What once appeared as cultural continuity now shows signs of deeper structural change beneath the surface. The persistence of maternal lines alongside the disappearance of paternal ones points to a pattern that repeats across regions and time periods. This matters because it challenges the idea of gradual historical development. Instead, the data suggests moments where populations were reorganized in ways that left limited visible traces. Cultural identity continued, but the underlying lineage shifted. As more sites are studied and more DNA is analyzed, this pattern-set pattern becomes harder to ignore. The changes are not isolated, and they are not limited to a single civilization. They form a sequence of events that connects multiple societies across centuries. What is emerging is not a simple narrative of rise and fall, but a layered history shaped by replacement, continuity, and transformation at the same time.